We are in this together.
You have gifts that I don't have, and I have gifts that you don't have.
That we must see. Now is the time, because it's when we all get together that we will make the changes that we must make. We are the world.
Hello, and welcome to Malcolm and We, as seen on malcolmpresents.com. My co-host Malcolm is unable to be here today, so I'm here on my own. And my name is Diana Larson. Daniela Gioseffi. Daniela Gioseffi. I think I got it. Is a woman with many talents and accomplishments. I became aware of her when I joined with Al Gore's Climate Leadership Corps. And my goal is to amplify the advocacy efforts of my fellow activists in the Corps via the platform of Malcolm and We, the partnership of Malcolm Berman of malcolmpresents.com and We the World at we.net. Her current interest is with Eco-Poetry and her ecological poem videos on her YouTube channel, and in speaking to youth about climate and our relationship to Earth. Ciao, and tell us all about you.
Ciao, Jana. I'm happy to be here with you. I've been a member of the Climate Reality Project for some years. And even though I was first inspired to write about climate justice and climate crisis, when I read The Greenhouse Effect back in the 80s, I was really spurred on by Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth in 2006. So during the pandemic, I attended via internet Zoom courses to become a climate leadership speaker. And here's my diploma signed by Al Gore. And here's my green button from the Climate Reality Project, dubbing me a climate leadership speaker. And my most recent excitement was when I spoke for the local high school. I was a New Yorker for 50 years. When I moved to New Jersey 6 years ago, I met up a wonderful woman, Dr. Marion Glenn, who had founded the environmental department at Seton Hall University, nearby where I moved. We became friends in the Green Faith movement, and I introduced her to Climate Reality Project. And we would go all around during the pandemic, giving talks via Zoom to all the public libraries in New Jersey. And we would do this via Zoom, and I would do the inspirational part of why we should care about climate crisis. And she would do the science with a whole, show on video on the screen. So between the two of us, with her PowerPoint and my inspirational poetry and talk, we would give a nice balanced discussion. But my most recent exciting talk was in person now that the pandemic has calmed down. And I spoke to the local high school, Columbia High School, here in New Jersey, in Maplewood, which used to be the top 10 public high school in the entire United States. Now it's much more diverse and it's still highly rated, but I was invited by the biological teacher who also teaches ecology, the biology teacher there, to give a talk because she read my poetry. And she said, oh, come give a talk on climate and do some of your poetry. So I did. And here was the great thrill, Jana. I was scared to death at 82 to be talking to teenagers. And I thought, oh, they're going to think I'm an old bat. They're not going to be excited. And I was so gratified. They were cheering and applauding. I'm going to cry. They were high-fiving me on the way out. They really want us adults and elders to care. It makes them feel more secure. It really does. So I think it's so important for us older people to be part of this movement to assure the young that they're not alone and that we care. Because the psychologists say when you do that, they feel more secure in the world, they take less drugs, they commit less suicide, and so forth. So it's so important for us older people to talk about climate.
Well, you are so right. And that is one of the reasons that Malcolm, he's a person of a certain age, as we are. And during the pandemic, he saw, having been in media all his life, and then now being in LA, the need to have a platform that can really reach out and be heard and seen by youth with this message that there is hope, there's reason to pull together and do what we can. Yeah, there's a lot of gloom and doom, but there's also a lot of reason to be excited because there are other people like us. There are people of our age. I'm a aging hippie. I became interested in the 70s when I was young and,
Indian clothing. And
yeah,
I was part of the feminist movement,
me too.
wage movement, and all of that. So I'm really thrilled to meet you for the first time, Yana. And I want to augment what you're saying because aside from, first of all, being a climate reality leadership speaker, I also belong to other groups which are forming. And one of them is a group called Elders Climate Action.
Oh, yes, they're very active.
And I work with them as well because we can belong to more than one environmental group.
Yes, we can.
I also belong to Earth Justice because those are the lawyers. And we have some 17 lawsuits by young people with pro bono lawyers suing state legislatures for the right to a life on this glorious planet Earth. Which
is that what, like the Julianne lawsuit?
Yes, exactly. And so that when I do speak to the young people, or even the old people or the elders, I like to give hope because Michael Mann said that the fossil fuel corporations, which have profit for their first motive above people and life, they're really murderous. They're being sued by in many places as well. The big oil companies like ExxonMobil that have lied about climate for years. But what we need to do is realize that there's a lot of hope because Michael Mann, one of our great climatologists, has said they want us to be depressed and feel suicidal and give up. So our job is to stay hopeful and keep working and keep spreading the word of hope. So that's what I want to do here, Yana. I want to mention the White House website that deals with the new Inflation Reduction Act and the things that it can do, because I know we have to be apolitical in a great measure as a nonprofit group, but we can say what the Inflation Reduction Act is doing. It was actually passed bipartisan anyway.
Yes.
There's a White House website where you can go for the Climate Reduction Act guidebook, a whole PDF you can print out. And here's what it covers: advancing and deploying American-made clean energy technologies, protecting communities from harmful air pollution. And as we know, the corrupt Supreme Court has just tried to gut or mostly gutted the Clean Air Act, and making homes and buildings cleaner and more efficient to save consumers money and cut pollution, investing in a substantial lower carbon federal government, harnessing nature-based solutions and climate-smart agriculture to deliver economic, climate, and resilience benefits, preserving and protecting the nation's lands and waters for climate mitigation and resilience, increasing the resilience of our communities in a changing climate, and making permitting of energy instruction more efficient and effective. So those are some of the things that you can find how to do on the White House website for the climate, for the Inflation Reduction Act, which is one of the biggest pieces of legislation ever passed for climate. But even that's not enough. We had a motto in when I helped organize the big 2014 People's Climate March in New York, past the United Nations. Of course, we put the Native Americans at the front of that march because we really need to listen to their philosophies of how the earth belongs to everyone, and the air and the water are riches of the land that belong to all people. And we should stop thinking so much about ownership and exclusivity, because the Native American philosophy of protecting Mother Earth, Father, Son, cousin, water, air, and all that is so important. So we put them at the front of the march. In 2014, I helped organize that People's Climate March. And but what we also need to understand is that we have big corporate forces working against us. And that's why we have lawsuits from Earth Justice and so forth, pro bono lawyers who work to save Mother Earth, working to sue these fossil fuel corporations, ExxonMobil, Chevron, British Petroleum. We have to start naming our enemies. And also, I want to make a point, and I know I'm talking like a machine.
Well, I want you to. I want you to share the information.
Thank you, Yana. I'm so excited about sharing this because I have no purpose more important in my old age than to, not for me, but to save the planet for the young. That's how we pass on life on this earth, regardless of your religious persuasion. There is no question that we pass life on through our genes. And the grandchildren and the young of the earth is the future of life on the planet. So we
Absolutely.
for them. That's what it's about. And that gives me joy when I walk in the forest and I think how I'm part of nature. I will always be part of nature. And I even have a poem about that called I Hope the Earth Will Remember Me. I should have asked you if we could screen share that because it has beautiful visions of nature. And
Oh, well, when I was looking for up information about you to know more about you besides what I've seen on the Climate Reality, info site, I saw that you have done quite a bit and you have videos to go with it, which are so lovely. And isn't it wonderful that we have this ability with Zoom and such to really be able to get the information out and share it worldwide? We don't just live in our small communities, although those are important because that's where it can really start to branch out. But we can reach so many people of all ages everywhere, and that's the goal. And well, I'm not a poet and I don't go out and speak. I can do this.
Yes, you're doing a wonderful job, Yana, and I'm pleased to be here. And I wanted to say that Zoom has saved us in a way. I mean, I was giving climate talks via Zoom at the public libraries. It's brought the world together. But there's also a lot of evil disinformation on YouTube, social media that we have to avoid. And so I'm very proud to say something about my state of New Jersey. We are the first state in the union to require climate science taught in all our public schools.
Wow.
It's a requirement. Now we've come up with another great requirement just this past couple of weeks ago. New Jersey has passed legislation stating that we must teach students how to avoid disinformation on the social media and internet. So we have passed a law making that necessary in public schools, because we live in a time when science itself is being questioned, and yet we live and thrive through science. And it's always coming up with new techniques and new discoveries. But the trees behind me live by science. Those trees are collecting carbon and sequestering it in the earth. They are a whole carbon recycling, water recycling system. And we have to understand the science of nature. Photosynthesis, the miracle that green leaves lift their faces to the sun and produce food for the animal kingdom of the planet. Without the sun and trees, we can't exist. Atmospheric balance. That's how many people think about atmospheric balance when they walk down a city street where you can hardly see a tree, or how many about it in general, atmospheric balance. So as a poet, I want to mention something very important that many environmentalists agree with, and that is we have to start using language that projects the urgency. We have to stop saying climate change. That sounds, we have to say climate crisis, heading for climate catastrophe. We have to not say global warming. When I first said that once, some kids said to me, oh, good, we'll go swimming more and we'll have more barbecues, we'll have longer. So we can't say global warming, we have to say global overheating, global overheating, global overheating, climate crisis, climate catastrophe. And we have to say these things. We have to say atmospheric balance gives us life on this planet. We have to teach the basic science and make sure everyone understands photosynthesis and atmospheric balance, two of the most important things for saving all life on this planet. And it isn't that if we destroy the climate, everything's going to die all at once. It's going to die off slowly toward the end of this century, in about 6 or 7 years. And Al Gore was warning us back in 2006 of an inconvenient truth. And here we are in 223 heading for 224, and we haven't done enough. But we have done wonderful things. And I want to say some of the things that have been happening. I have some good news if we have time. I have some good news that's been happening, because when I give my talks, Jana, and I'm sure you feel the same, I have to give hope. I have to say what we have accomplished.
Yes.
So
and Al Gore was very good about that during the training too, I thought.
He's always been good about that. He always gives us hope. He's one of our great leaders. You know, it's a tragedy that he didn't become president and that the election was stolen from him, really, by gerrymandering and everything else. But in a way, we're blessed because he became an important climate leader for our time.
Absolutely.
Well, might have been better if he was president, but he was. We're have him as a great leader worldwide. And when he won the Nobel laureate, he didn't win it just for himself. He won it for all the 100 or so climatologists from around the globe that he works with at the UN International Governmental Panel on Climate Change. But I would like to call it climate crisis these days.
Right.
And I just want to say some of the good things I've been reading to give us hope, especially for the young. They need hope. Because during the pandemic and during the school shootings, and all these issues are related politically, sociopolitically, because if we vote for the right people, we'll also be voting for gun safety. We'll also be voting for voter rights and women's rights and all those important things.
Human rights.
Human rights. Yes, Jana, human rights. So important for the planet, because one of the problems of climate crisis is overpopulation. And a man should have the right, as well as a woman, to decide the size of family he feels he can raise and have the money to raise properly and educate. So let me, some of the, this women's rights is not just women's rights, it's family rights.
Yes.
Family, human rights to decide. And how many people realize, I just want to say here, that many women, more than half women who seek abortions, are married women with too many children already. And if they die in giving birth to another, they can leave a whole bevy of children orphaned. Does that make sense for the right to life? No.
No, it does not.
Some of the people who talk about right to life are really talking about right to death, because they're the same people who vote against believing the science of climate crisis.
Exactly. And like guns.
Yes, absolutely, Jana. You're a wise woman. And to realize that the silver-haired people are very wise. I can't. I'm 82, but I can't wait for it to turn gray. It's not.
Well, I started young, so.
Now there's in the 19th century, gray hair or silver hair was considered a sign of wisdom. It was only after all that dye hair from Revlon and Claire Oil and all that commercial crap that poisons your scalp came into being, and then people started decrying the wisdom of white hair. But that's the reason why we had judges with big white wigs in the 19th century.
Yeah,
Wisdom. So you have a lot of wisdom, Yana. In
I
fact,
do. I do.
one of the important things that we're doing environmentally is trying to save the bees. And earlier this summer, our friends in the environmental movement in Colorado passed a law to remove the how do you say those? Maybe you know better. I can't think of the word right now. Because this is too small for me to read, neonicotinoids from stores. And we should all be boycotting the things that contain these horrible bee killers. And we should be limiting their use and limiting plants that contain poisons for bees. But many states have begun to pass laws to save the bees. And nothing we use for a few minutes should pollute our environment permanently the way throwaway plastics do. So I'm proud to say that New Jersey has one of the strongest anti-throwaway plastic laws in the entire country, because we're a peninsula. We're particularly threatened by climate crisis because a lot of our economy depends on those shore communities with boardwalks where merchants sell things and people go to visit the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. And if that floods, I don't know, they're all going to be knocking on our doors for food. We're going to have climate zombies.
Yes.
Anyway, I was just about saying that New Jersey has passed one of the strongest against plastic pollution legislations in the country, because what was happening to our shores and our sandy beaches, we were collecting tons of plastic straws that were killing the fish, polluting the water. We were trying to swim and bumping into floating plastic bags. Plastic was making a mess of the New Jersey shores. And I think that's why, because of economic reasons, New Jersey passed a really strong environmental law. We're not, styrofoam has been totally outlawed in New Jersey. People still break the law and use it. And plastic bags for shopping, we're using reusable bags. And we're getting rid of plastic straws. Now you can find paper straws everywhere. So that was another good thing that's happening. Other states too are beginning to pass these.
Yeah, you don't have to think big objects. Smaller objects are the problem too. Just start somewhere and go with it, and then add to the solution.
You're so correct, Yana. And other states like California and Oregon have passed these anti-throwaway plastic laws, not just New Jersey. So that's good news. And I should put in here, Yana, I'm sure you realize that state law can make a difference, while the federal laws against us during the last administration were happening in the states. And we had many communities, like, for example, one of the first green towns in the entire United States, all green, was Ithaca, New York, where my friend who founded the environmental department at Seton Hall that I used to work with, unfortunately, she's moved up toward Ithaca, where she has an organic farm and she's selling organic wild blueberries, and she's grandchildren. So I miss her terribly, Dr. Marion Glenn, but she's moved up that way, where we had some of the first green towns happening all over. Maybe you know the names of some others, Yana, green towns in the country who have turned all green.
Well, I come from Colorado and I grew up in Boulder. So, I mean, I know, Colorado, except for having some redness to it, isn't, well, I think it's purple now, but I grew up in a very blue area where we always thought about the environment. So, and there are pockets everywhere. And that's encouraging.
Colorado is a beautiful state with beautiful nature. So people have been inspired to join the environmental movement there to preserve the beauty of nature, which, by the way, comforts us psychologically. When you're really anxious and upset, just take a walk among some trees and you will feel better. It's as if they talk to your spirit, because
Oh,
some
yeah.
they tell you, and I'm not being supernatural here, I'm being scientific. Somehow, when we walk among the trees and the grass and the flowers, the colors of the flowers lift our spirits, the beauty of the sound of birds singing, all of those things comfort us. They tell us, even though we can't live forever, we're part of this glorious system of earth, of atmospheric balance, of trees and photosynthesis that feeds us. There's something instinctive in the human animal. When you walk among nature, if you're feeling anxious, go worship Mother Earth and she'll make you feel better for sure. And she has a lot of gray hair.
And on that note, I think we're going to have to end soon because we have 30 minutes and I just got a message from my Zoom. So, and I know you have to go somewhere, but would you please come back and
That
visit us?
I just want to end with the idea that a lot of progress is being made. So keep hope alive, because to save everything, we need everyone. And to light one candle is better than raging against the darkness. And that's a great old Chinese proverb. To light one candle is better than to rage against the darkness. So keep your spirits up, everybody, and keep fighting to preserve our own sustenance, Mother Earth. Thank you, Yana.
Thank you. It's been wonderful talking with you. You're very, very inspiring. And I love all the work that you've done. You're an amazing, amazing woman. And I want to have you back to hear more about what you do. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Yana. You're one of my people. Thank you. I love environmental workers. I literally love them with all my heart. So I love you, Yana. Thank you.
Thank you. And have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Saving the world, I'm sure.
It's a great fun.
Ciao.
Ciao.
The objective of the organization We the World is to facilitate cooperation on a global scale amongst groups and individuals dedicated to implementing solutions to the many challenges we face on the planet at this time.